Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for the opportunity to share a little bit of Clarity's story with you this morning. And for those of you who, on day 2 of a terrifically informative conference, might be in slight information overload mode, I've got great news for you. While we've got a terrific team of brilliant PhDs at the Clearity Foundation, I am not one of them. So probably the biggest risk that you might face in understanding what I'm saying is probably because of my voice. I'm getting over a case of laryngitis. So, but my hope today is to share with you a little bit of the insights that we as an organization have after really working with patients and families for the last 10 years to help them to live in the future of genomic medicine. And my hope is that by sharing with you some of the challenges and the resistance and the struggles that we've encountered and in large part are working to overcome, that you might have some perspective and insight into how technologies and programs that are very promising, oftentimes it's difficult for them to work in this very complicated world of the patient and the family life, and certainly in the more complex medical universe that patients are coping in. So I hope that some of our learnings will prompt further discussion and even inspiration as you go about your work and your projects. So with that, I'll begin with the fact that every year in this country alone, more than 22,000 women are shocked to hear the words, "You have ovarian cancer." And what we hear from patients and families is that life is really never the same after that. Families are shocked to learn that ovarian cancer lags literally decades behind other cancers in terms of survival and prognosis. And as you can see, while we've made some great progress in improving survival rates in certain areas of oncology, ovarian cancer still lags far behind. At Clearity, we're very encouraged by the introduction of PARP inhibitors and see terrific opportunity for that therapeutic class. And we need a lot more of that to really shift the prognosis that patients are receiving every day. So these unacceptably poor survival statistics mean that every year we're losing thousands of our mothers, our sisters, and our loved ones to this disease. Women with ovarian cancer tell us that they feel overlooked in a sea of pink ribbons. And oftentimes they feel that their physicians have given up on them. There are just under 200,000 women living with ovarian cancer in the United States. As I said, there are 22,000 diagnoses every year, and we lose about 14,000 women to this disease every year. And there's good reason, unfortunately, for these poor survival statistics. About 75% of women are diagnosed in late stage, in stage 3 or stage 4. The majority of patients have a recurrence within 2 years of diagnosis, and just about a third of women survive past 10 years of their diagnosis. So one of the women who received this diagnosis in 2006 was Clarity's founder, Dr. Laura Shaver. And she was a highly unusual ovarian cancer patient. She had been a bench scientist and had been involved in one of the teams that developed Sutent, which was one of the first target oncology drugs. She went on to lead biotech companies here in San Diego. So in addition to being a scientist by training, she's an entrepreneur as well. And so when she asked her oncologist, "Well, I know that I have a high chance of recurring. What kinds of tests are you planning to do on my tumor to better select treatment?" The answer was, not surprisingly to the folks in this room, was, "We don't do that in ovarian cancer," which was shocking to her and really led her to found the Clearity Foundation so that she could not just be more informed in her own treatment decision-making, but could help others become more informed in theirs. And that was our founding mission, to facilitate the most comprehensive genomic tumor testing that we could on behalf of patients to help them make a more informed treatment decision. Since our founding, Laura really committed to having very high quality scientific oversight. And to this day, we still have some of the key opinion leaders in ovarian cancer involved on our scientific advisory board. So in essence, Clearity has become a trusted partner to the ovarian cancer community and a science-based and credible source of hope to women and their families. At no cost to the patient, we provide hours of individual counseling on their unique case. And what that includes is helping to facilitate testing of their tumor with the goal of identifying not just the NCCN-approved treatments that are available, but considering drugs that might be used off-label or clinical trials that might be an appropriate option for them. We guide women to clinical trials when it's appropriate, and we help to connect women through an online network. We started with the mission of ensuring that finances were not a barrier to women accessing this kind of testing. And so if a woman is uninsured or can't afford her copay, we'll pay for the cost of the diagnostic tests as well. In addition, we collect all of the information that we use to counsel and support individual patients in a privacy-protected database. And our hope is that through our support of patients individually, we can collect data that can help to uncover opportunities to improve treatment in the future. So I want to take just a few minutes to talk in a little more detail about the nature of this kind of support that we provide to patients. And that really begins with what's the nature of ovarian cancer treatment, or what is that treatment path? The vast majority of patients receive debulking surgery followed by standard chemotherapy of carboplatin and Taxol. And about 25% of patients are either resistant or refractory to this drug combination. 75% of them do respond and go into remission, but of those, 75% will recur. And I should say that this is for advanced stage ovarian cancer, and again, it's about 75% of the women who are diagnosed. So at this point of recurrence or progression, when there is a treatment decision to be made, what Clearity offers is genomic data, tumor information, to help inform that treatment selection versus empiric selection by the physician. So we work with 3 CLIA-certified labs to create an integrated and comprehensive panel of tests for ovarian cancer. The protein-based panel that we use helps us to identify which NCCN-approved drugs might be most appropriate given a patient's profile. And then we also work with Foundation Medicine and utilize their Foundation 1 test to look at possible clinical trials and off-label drugs that a patient and family should also consider. We provide all of the information from these 3 testing labs back to the patient in an integrated online interactive report so that patients can go in and look at the drugs for which their profile indicates there might be some therapeutic benefit, and conversely, which ones the profile suggests might not be as beneficial. They're able to click through this information and do a little bit of self-learning about their test results, and that exercise is followed up with a conversation with our Clearity staff to answer questions and explain the results in more detail. We also send the report to the patient's physician, and oftentimes they'll also call our staff to review the results as well. As I said, we have a large ovarian cancer database of ovarian cancer profiles, and it's really representative of the depth of information that is required to collect in order to have a fully informed conversation with each patient. So we collect extensive clinical history, demographic information, in addition to the profiling results that we help to facilitate. We track patients over time, so we collect longitudinal outcomes data and really do develop an ongoing and trusted relationship with patients throughout their journey. All of the information is privacy protected, and we have developed a de-identified research database that we can partner with researchers and academicians for different research studies, and all of that is consented and IRB approved. Interestingly, about 27% of the patients that we work with enroll in clinical trials. And it's worth saying here that this is probably, I'm sure it's indicative of the type of patient that we engage with. The patients that we're working with are highly motivated, they're highly resourced, and they are agents for their own care. They are, I think, unusually receptive to considering different treatment options, including clinical trials. I've also included just a basic snapshot of some of the analyses that we're capable of doing with the kind of data that we collect, and this is just representative or meant to illustrate the kinds of analyses that we're interested. But the benefit of this lifetime tracking of patients and this collection of the longitudinal data really gives us a unique opportunity to look into a more complete picture of the patient experience, and to be able to query and look at if there are patterns in survival or in treatment efficacy that might be helpful to the other patients that we support, and hopefully ultimately to improving treatment across the board. And this is just an example of, not surprisingly, there's improved survival with patients who are platinum sensitive compared to platinum-resistant and refractory patients, but that's not true for everyone. And it would be interesting to analyze and query and try to understand what's contributing to the survival of some of the patients who are even platinum-resistant and refractory. So in the 10 years that we have spent supporting patients and families, we've supported more than 625 patients with over 780 tumor profiles. And this represents literally thousands of calls over time and hours of counseling that we've provided. And we are truly working at the intersection of tumor biology and what is a highly personal experience of disease. And I'm very grateful that the staff that we have are not only highly educated and knowledgeable scientists, but they're also very compassionate and warm human beings. And over time, we've come to understand that that is vital in helping patients to navigate what's highly complex scientific data. Our staff really takes the time to get to know what patients' priorities are, what's important to them, because we've realized that that's really the only way to truly consider and weigh different treatment options over the other. You need to understand what our priorities in terms of side effects or risks or likelihood of efficacy. And the only way to do that is by building a personal relationship with patients. So that's a little bit of our history. As I said, we're coming up on our 10 years, and in looking ahead to the next wave of our development and where we think we can be of most help to the community, we went through a similar exercise of asking ourselves, what are the needs in the community, and what do we know, and how can we best serve patients and their families? So I just want to focus on two insights that have been driving some of our thinking from looking internally at the kinds of interactions that we have with patients, the kinds of questions that they ask. And what we're continually impressed by is the struggle that patients and families have to access information that they believe is credible, that is based in science, that they can trust, and that is relevant to them. Is this piece of information helpful given my clinical situation? And we know that there are a lot of missed opportunities from engaging with patients late in their disease course, and certainly gaps in care. We get a lot of feedback from patients and families, and I wanted to just drill into this a little bit because I think it's an important point, and it kind of illustrates with a very human voice what patients experience, that they are flooded and inundated with information that might not be helpful to them in the moment. And then oftentimes they learn too late about options, treatments, interventions that could have helped them. So there's this tremendous asynchrony, especially in a difficult to treat disease like ovarian cancer, between when a patient needs information, when they can benefit from it, and when or whether they might not ever receive it. They might not ever learn about clinical trials. And taken individually, these are sort of sad statements of where this journey goes wrong, but this was actually the same family who received this flood of information up front and then learned about Clearity too late. One of the things also, and I think that there's a lot of patients have never walked this path before. They don't know what lies in store. They're not always aware that treatment decisions that they might be making today can preclude them from other options down the line. And so helping them to understand better what might be coming is a huge opportunity that we see. A lot of patients ask us what we think about as kind of real-world data type questions, and we see a huge opportunity to utilize our database to do more real-world type analyses. They want to know if complementary alternative medicine approaches are helpful, and responsiveness of other patients to drugs. In addition to looking at the work that Clearity does and asking questions about where we're having impact and what we can do to further support patients, we also partnered with one of our large foundation donors to do kind of a market research study of the ovarian cancer journey and where things tend to go wrong for patients. And we found that at diagnosis, a lot of patients, as I said, feel overwhelmed and uncertain of where to try and find trusted information. They struggle during treatment, sometimes to manage the basics of their treatment, as well as the kind of the emotional and social overwhelm that comes along with that. And oftentimes, understandably, worry about the prospect of recurrence and the decisions that they'll face. In ovarian cancer, sometimes news of recurrence can be more devastating even than the initial diagnosis, as patients don't have an entirely clear path for treatment decision-making going forward. So as we look at the next phase of Clarity's service and our programs, we've started to map out the needs that we see and the opportunities to intervene at different stages of the journey, not just with clinical information, but with psychosocial information as well. And so what we're doing is taking a view of much as we did back in 2009, where we had to ask the question, well, if we're going to have to create this ovarian cancer panel on our own, we need to go to the scientific literature and see which biomarkers are relevant, how we interpret the data. So we're going through a similar exercise on the psychosocial side and trying to figure out where is there science-based evidence that can benefit patients today who are battling this disease. And we're early into this process, but just wanted to share a few of the areas that we think are especially intriguing. One of the largest, or one of the studies that received a lot of coverage at the ASCO conference was in the area of symptom monitoring. The Ethan Bosch study showed a survival benefit in late-stage cancer patients who frequently reported their symptoms versus waiting for an office visit. Likewise, there's an interesting body of literature around palliative care planning and the improvements that can make in quality of life and even surprisingly in survival. We're also looking at the stress and the influence of stress on the tumor microenvironment. Interestingly, a lot of this work has been done in ovarian cancer by Dr. Susan Lukendorf at the University of Iowa, and she's published quite a bit on this topic. So these are all areas where we think that we can build upon our history of providing science-based information to improve patients' experience of ovarian cancer. Our goal, of course, is to ultimately improve quality of life, outcomes, and ultimately, we hope, the standard of care and how ovarian cancer is treated. So we're looking at this almost as a new integrated patient advocacy model. We're building on our roots and our foundation of science-based support of treatment decision-making, and then looking to the disciplines really that exist in social work. As an example, there's a discipline within social work called oncology social work, and a lot of these positions are found at major cancer centers. So we're looking at integrating those services into one complete program. Our goals are to lower stress, improve clinical outcomes, increase quality of life, and build resilience and agency, and to improve survival with more precision treatment selection. So just in closing, I welcome you all to help spread the word. If you know of anyone who is in the situation who could benefit from the type of counseling and support that Clearity provides, please send them our way. We're right here in San Diego. Likewise, if any of the data collection that I described might be interesting to you from a research perspective, we've had a number of research partnerships and willing to explore those. And then we're always looking for new board members and volunteers who might be very passionate about this cause and interested in getting involved. So thank you all for your efforts to advance the future of precision medicine. Thank you.